I have mentioned before that Dragon's Dogma is my favorite RPG game of all time, having sunk a lot of time on it that I should have spent doing something more productive like editing my videos, but hey, here we are. But why am I so fixated on a title that came out in 2012? I already platinumed the game twice, you will think I will be done with it by now. Several other games have come out since its release as well. So what is it about this title that has such a grip on me that I am constantly revisiting it? I have actually asked myself this question many times, and it's only now that the sequel looms in the horizon that I actually sit down to try and find those answers. So take a seat, enjoy some wine, and listen as we delve into one of the most underrated RPGs of the 7th generation of consoles. I feel like I shouldn't need to tell you that there will be spoilers given that it's been 12 years since the original game came out, but yeah, there will be spoilers for the main story as well as the DLC. Anyway, enjoy this intro montage. Our journey begins with an ordinary day in the fishing village of Cáceres. The people here lead a simple existence. They fish, they love, they live, and they die, with little care for the affairs of the world beyond the village's only defensive wall. That is until one day when the sky darkens and a large figure approaches the placid shoreline. The dragon of legend, harbinger of destruction that had been banished 50 years ago, returns to wreak havoc in our hometown. Our kith and kin run for their lives, and even the appointed guards, armed and dressed with steel, turn tail in the face of this behemoth. But not us. We pick up a sword, and we get promptly bitch slapped because of course we are. We're not special, just another human in a land of many. And yet, this act of defiance catches the creature's eye. With words we cannot understand, it speaks its name, Grigori, and its claw reaches towards us while we struggle to stand back up. The talon draws closer until our body burns with pain as we see our heart, impaled upon the beast's claw. It slowly brings it towards its maw as if taunting us. With waning strength, we watch helpless as the monster devours our heart, and our eyes close as the darkness takes us. We later awake in the chief's house, surrounded by other victims of the attack, and yet we're capable of standing and moving on our own. Then we hear its voice again, telling us to take arms if we are to reclaim what was taken from us. It is that fateful day that we become something more than human. We become Arison. However, our journey is not an easy one. Though the dragon's touch has made us unaging and free of any illness, we are still mortal. We may die. And as we venture outside of the village's gate seeking answers, so too do we venture into the dangerous unknown. As the main story progresses, our claim of being chosen by the dragon is met with skepticism and mockery. It is through our actions that we bring credibility to our condition as Arisen, and as we advance through the game, our power grows in tandem with our legend. From being taken out by stray bandits on the road, we become able to hunt down monsters such as griffins and chimeras. Our rusted weapons and simple garb are traded for tools and armor of better make. We learn magic and cast spells that can level the opposition in the blink of an eye. At the end of our journey, we're respected, feared, and even hated by many within the duchy. Everyone, far and wide, knows of our deeds as Arisen. Such a growth is noticeable for the player, and it feels good to revisit areas where we once struggled to see how far along we've come. Where other games inflate the health numbers of enemies to provide a challenge to the player, Dragon's Dogma's War continues to play by the same rules it started with all the way until the very end. We've proven ourselves strong and capable enough to retake our heart, and thus we are offered a new challenge to uncover the secrets of this world about the dragon and of the title of Arisen. The story of Dragon's Dogma is a formula straight out of classic high fantasy, the epic adventure of a person, chosen perhaps by fate, perhaps just circumstance. As they venture beyond their comfort zone in an epic quest across their world, they hone their skills, make allies and enemies, and become entangled in the threats that dictate their world's future. While there is lore in the setting that is not conveyed to the player directly, it also isn't something that I feel is mandatory to understand or acknowledge in order to enjoy the game. And for those of us who like to dig a little deeper, there's plenty to learn and uncover. Dragon's Dogma's official design works provides not just development notes, but also information that could not be included into the actual game, given that over 2/3 of its content were cut from the final release. Though its story may be a bit cliche, it's a familiar tale that everyone that ever picked up a stick as a kid can enjoy. Sure, it's not super deep, nor does it make you question your morals or society's norms, but not every piece of entertainment has to be thought provoking. Sometimes you just wanna hit things with a big stick and watch them go flying because it's fun. And if the reason why you're taking on a small army of rebel soldiers is because of a telegraphed treason, are you going to turn down the opportunity to cleave and slash your way through just because you saw it coming a mile away? One of the more unique features of Dragon's Dogma is the pawn system. AI companions that support you in your travels, whether it is by actively fighting enemies, healing and buffing your party, or simply giving you directions towards your objective. During our journey as Arisen, we get to create our own pawn to our heart's content, with the same robust character creator we used to make our character, assigning a vocation to them, and then further customizing them by choosing their inclinations and personality. All of these choices matter. A heavier character may run out of breath faster, but they can also carry heavier burdens. A challenger will prioritize engaging the strongest enemy present, leaving the weak ones to the party. You get my point. The possibilities of customization are nearly endless, and I've spent hours trying different combinations of features for both my Arisen and my pawn. But it doesn't end there. As we play, we're able to hire two support pawns to aid us in our journey. Though there's a large quantity of pawns that come with the game in offline mode, the real fun begins once we go online. We're able to summon and hire pawns created by other players to take with us in our adventures, and other players are able to do the same with our own. But wait, there's more. On top of that, any new knowledge our pawn will acquire in their travels with other Arisen will stay with them upon their return. Not only that, but when any Arisen dismisses another Arisen's pawn, they're able to leave a review based on their performance, and even send gifts to other Arisen through this system. While it's not a full-blown co-op mode, it is still a neat way to interact with other players that tickles my fancy because Lord knows how socially awkward I am interacting with other people. One of the biggest drawing points of Dragon's Dogma is its combat. Most games either let you hit enemies with weapons and magic in a very static way, or they make you slash at a giant's feet until they eventually die from 1,000 cuts and drop dead for stepping on one too many Lego. Sure, you can target weak points from afar, but if you're a melee weapons guy, you're shit out of luck 9% of the time. Not in Dragon's Dogma, where you can climb onto enemies and hit them where it hurts directly, even using said big monster's movement to climb higher or hit certain body parts you normally would not be able to target. The fights don't normally draw for long. Either you take out the enemy fast, or it takes you out fast. This is more like what I imagine would look like for the characters in a tabletop RPG encounter, rather than what other games show the player, with turn-based combat where someone can idle for minutes figuring what to do, while everybody else waits. And it's not just your character doing the busy work alone. While you're approaching the enemy, your pawns are all acting accordingly to the situation based on what they know. Archers target faraway enemies or weak points to bring large enemies to heal. Warriors draw aggro and get into the heat of battle to give an opening to the caster, who are either buffing the rest of the party, casting healing magic, or preparing a spell to target elemental weaknesses. As you spend time playing the game and learning how to counter certain enemies, eventually everything clicks together, and you spend less time thinking about what you'll do next, and you start simply doing. Perfect blocking becomes natural, lining up shots gets easier, and casting spells becomes less about positioning and more about reading the flow of combat. You and your party become a well-oiled machine that works together well and that can fell any enemy that they encounter. One of my favorite things to do in games that give you customization options is mixing and matching gear, and Dragon's Dogma also has an excellent equipping system. You have 9 different gear slots, allowing you for near infinite combinations of clothes, armor, and accessories. There's an ample selection of clothes and padding to wear below your armor, as well as capes, rings, hats, and helmets. And though the starting gear can grow obsolete as you progress through the game, that doesn't mean it will stay in your storage forever. By upgrading and dragon forging equipment, you can make items that were once weak become able to match the stats of endgame items, allowing you to continue adventuring, dress, and arm however you like. There's broken endgame gear that you can get that looks exactly like you'd expect, but you're not forced to use it if you don't want to. If you want to stick to a theme of a lightly armored Arisen, you can do so just as much as you can play the elegantly dressed spellcaster, or an armored knight, or the scantily clad barbarian. My only complaint here is that the Berserk collaboration armor sets were locked to only the PS3 and Xbox 360 versions of the game because of copyright reasons, but I digress. The Dark Arisen DLC was released a year after the game, and it rebalanced a lot of aspects of it. Not only did it change how stats grew for some vocations, it also introduced new armors and weapons, as well as new enemy types and unique bosses. From Khazar's Pier, we sailed to an island hidden behind stormy waters, Bitter Black Isle, following the request of a mysterious woman named Olra. Bitter Black Isle features a long series of corridors and rooms full of treasure, monsters, and even the remains of other Arisen that have come trying to brave the horrors of the labyrinth, only to become trapped in it forever. Whereas the main game is an open world, Bitter Black Isle is more of a gauntlet of sorts, with every room being a greater challenge than the one before, and with rest points being few and far between each other. New mechanics such as rarification and purification are introduced, the first allowing you to upgrade items beyond their original Dragonforge status, turning any piece of equipment into something truly legendary. The second, Purification, gives you the chance to unveil the secrets of the items shrouded by the Arlac's curse, such as rare consumables, a lantern that buzzes brighter and longer than a regular one, scrolls that grant secret knowledge for both you and your pawn, and weapons and armor that cannot be found in the Grancis Peninsula. Of course, these items are fiercely guarded by the enemies that populate Bitter Black Isle: giant skeletons and poisonous undead, goblins wielding magic staves, living suits of armor, and even the Grim Reaper himself. If you thought that post-Grigori Grancis was the stuff of nightmares, Bitter Black Isle is going to make you miss Hellhounds and Succubi. Or not, because they're also among the denizens of the Cursed Maze. It's a thrilling dungeon that culminates in a showdown against the master of the island, Daimon, a former Arisen transformed into a beast by a cruel fate. Once you defeat him, the labyrinth's denizens change. Now you will be hounded by new configurations of enemies in every room, deadlier than their original counterparts, as well as a new second phase for the final boss, making the dungeon that you might have grown familiar with feel alien and dangerous once more. Having said everything before, I admit that the game is not perfect. There are several things that I can objectively point at and say that they're lacking. The game has an open world, sure, but after running through it enough times you start to realize that there's a lot of empty space that is underutilized outside of some random encounters as well as certain story missions. There are several locations with NPCs that unless you check a guide or explore out of curiosity, will never encounter in a normal playthrough following the main questline. A few mechanics are not properly explained to players by the game, and even a few explanations within the game are misleading, likely a result of mistranslation. One complaint I hear the most about the game is that it has no fast travel, which is a lie. The game does come with fast travel, but again, it's not fully detailed to the player, so most people think that the game doesn't have one. In fact, most people that give the game a shot barely make it past the odds card escort quest, which is when fast travel is unlocked in the game. Admittedly, that mission is a slog to play through no matter how much you kick the odds to make it run faster. While I myself don't mind exploring through Grancis forests, canyons, valleys, and prairies, I can understand not everyone having the patience for it. I don't do that on some escort quests making you walk from one end of the map to the other while babysitting someone made out of wet paper and with the self-preservation instincts of a toddler. You can understand how it might be considered tedious. Some of the best gear in the game is tied to RNG, and you may spend hours save scumming trying to get a particular item, or farming enemies to get a specific crafting material to upgrade saved gear. While it's not necessary to get high-end gear and weapons to finish the game, I am a virtual collectionist, and I like having options when it comes to fashion. The game also auto-saves a lot, which means that some of your decisions or quests become final through that playthrough. And while this isn't a deal breaker, I can understand the frustration of failing a quest because you advance the plot too quickly or because of an ill-timed ambush. Dragon's Dogma is not a perfect game by any means, but it holds a special place in my heart. It's likely that I will continue to return to it as I have for the last 12 years, even after playing new titles or the sequel itself. It's the kind of game I always wanted to play ever since I first touched a controller. The fast-paced combat of Devil May Cry 3, fantasy archetypes and tropes from movies such as Dragonheart, letting me customize my character however I choose, and making me feel like my actions and choices matter in a world that I'm immersed in. Dragon's Dogma provides everything in that checklist for me, and I can't wait to see how the sequel measures up against the original after all this time. Anyway, sorry this video took longer to make than anticipated, but silver lining I already have a few other video ideas written down which I'll be getting to soon. If you liked the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. I try to make as many entertaining autistic rants as possible, so any engagement helps. See you on the next one. Also, the game is always on sale for like $5, go buy it.